Okay, we'll get started. Thank you for attending today's webinar teleconference. This is Danny Norman. I'm the Advanced Manufacturing Consultant for the University of Tennessee Center for Industrial Services, or UTCIS, as we affectionately call it. We're working with our federal sponsor, NIST Manufacturing Extension Partnership. So we are working with NIST to coordinate an effort to get supplies to the people who desperately need them. We're going to move quickly today. For the sake of time, we're going to save all of our questions and answers till the end of the webinar. And you can also submit questions as we go to the chat box feature. So we are going to try to address 3 questions. This is the second webinar of this kind. We did one a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to try to address the same topics. Who purchases COVID-19 products? What information do you need before pivoting to COVID supply production? And what's the most pressing information that manufacturers in Tennessee need to before they pivot to COVID manufacturing? So to shed light on these questions, we're going to hear from John Finger from Baptist Memorial, and I'll also provide a brief update from the UTCIS perspective if we have time. We're also going to hear from 2 business leaders here in the state of Tennessee that are supplying into new parts of the supply chain now. And we've got a very important final segment that you will want to stay on for. We're hearing many questions from our manufacturers about safety, safety topics, especially if you've got a positive case of COVID on the shop floor. How do you deal with that? And our own Walter Idle has many years of experience in addressing similar questions. I don't think anybody's addressed COVID before, but Walter is very prepared to do that. So that's our agenda today. We covered NIOSH and FDA product certification last time. If you still need that kind of information, we have that available for you. We're not going to cover it today, but please contact us if you have any questions regarding product certification. John Merle is the EVP of Marketing and Sales for the Escape Game. John, are you on the line, and can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
can you
John.
hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Great to hear your voice.
Yeah, I think to unmute I had hit *6, so that might have
okay,
been
*6 to unmute. Great.
Yeah.
So John is one of the founders of the Escape Game, which is an entertainment company in Nashville. They currently have 27 stores across the country. I think they started back in, 2000 and, was that 17 perhaps? John is was an integral part of every aspect of that company's development. So John, thanks so much for being on the call. For our manufacturers out there, you may be wondering why the Wide Entertainment Group is on the call about COVID supply manufacturing. And the reason is that the Escape Game was recently contracted by TEMA to produce 20,000 face masks. So I didn't see this coming either. So look forward to hearing more from John. John, can you tell us a little bit more about how this came about?
Yeah, sure. And right now we actually have 19 stores, and we were supposed to open those last 8 this year, but that's being thrown into a little bit of turmoil. So that 27 number was the plan, but COVID kind of threw our plans off. But I think, when COVID-19 started happening, unfortunately, in early March, all of our stores were shuttered. So all 18 currently open stores were shut down, and we quickly moved into sort of how do we survive this disaster as a retail company? we were mandated we shut down and needed to find a way to survive. And so we have a manufacturing facility where we build all of our components that go into our games. We have about 35 people working in a 20,000 square foot, really wood, metal, and paint shop. And that all got shuttered when we shut down. And so we started looking and saying, what can we do? It took about a week, and we were like, we've got to find a way to get people back to work, but also there's these critical needs here. And so we kind of stumbled upon face shields after seeing a company in Wisconsin that was another smallish manufacturing company starting to produce them. Realized it was something that was fairly simple, didn't require a lot of, it wasn't necessarily a complicated medical product. It's something we felt decent about producing. And so we kind of kicked it into motion and started marketing. And so, Danny, do you kind of just want me to go through the whole story, or where do you just let me know where you want to jump in?
Yeah, so I'm specifically interested in, how you were able to get the word out, and how that interaction with TEMA started to happen.
Yeah, for sure. So it took about a week for us to secure supplies and get our first sample created. But as soon as we had a sample in hand that we felt confident that we could take to market, and had worked with our lawyers to try to make sure that we were the FDA was comfortable with what we were doing. We have a large email database of past players, and so about 1 million people in that list, and a fairly large social following. And so we built a landing page on our website specifically for the face shields, explained what we were doing, why we were doing it, kind of how TEG was getting involved in the effort. Sent an email blast out, and then started a social media kind of outreach. At the same time, we then simultaneously took a PR approach and had our entire marketing team calling news outlets and media outlets, sort of selling the story that an escape room company was switching over their manufacturing facility to start to make face shields. And so we kind of attacked it from the website, PR, and social media. And over the weekend, we got 40 or 50 over the weekend of launching, 40 or 50 inbound inquiries generated from one of those three methods, of people either seeing a brief press clip or getting our email, or a friend sharing the social media post. And that team of inbound actually came as a result of that first weekend of outreach, and started a conversation with the guy, found out what they were looking for, what they needed, got him a sample, 2 days later. And then that afternoon, actually, they committed to buying the first batch. And then a few days ago, they actually upped the order and committed for another 15,000 units. So.
Wow. And how many people is that helping you keep on the books right now?
Yeah, about 15 people for 4 weeks.
Okay. Fantastic. I just think that's a great story of all hands on deck to try, you're using every aspect of your business and marketing, getting everybody involved in trying to help. And so that's fantastic. Where, I just feel like you've got a sixth sense for these types of opportunities. Where do you think this is headed in the next 3 to 6 months, John? Do you think, do you have longer term plans to help out with this, or after those next 15,000, will you move on to something else?
We're wrestling with that same question. I think that we know there's a point at which we're not competitive with this. And so part of this for us was about how quickly we want the supply chain to return to normal. We want pricing to get lower. And so we kind of realized, hey, there's probably 4 or 5 weeks where this is peaking in the U.S. and the supply chain is really constrained. And so let's get in really quickly and make these and keep our guys busy and supply a critical need. And then I think we don't see face shields as something we're going to be doing 3 months from now, because we're not, we're doing it highly manually. We're not a plastic shop that we're not the best in the long run, the best producer to be making these things, but I think we just filled a critical need. But I think one thing we're looking at is it's looking like we're not going to be building new stores for a while. So we're definitely exploring what other types of products can our shop produce that we have skill sets in. The category we're kind of looking at is what helps people get back to normal, like what helps people return to work. I mean, it's simple stuff, but if you've gone to Home Depot or any store lately, you're seeing these screen dividers they're putting in front of every cashier. every restaurant's going to probably need to outfit their booths with new dividers. There's all types of sort of, as our world is shifting, how do we return to life but stay safe? And I think there's, for our facility at least, I think that's the opportunity we're looking at, is how can our shop produce those things and supply them locally to keep our team busy until, well, we really wanted to get back to making escape games. And so how do we keep our guys busy and employed until the world's ready for us to build new stores again?
Well, John, that's just a fantastic story. And, you know, you're like so many businesses that are wrestling with these really difficult decisions in the face of an incredible, uncertain times. And so we applaud you, applaud your efforts, and thanks so much for helping those that need these supplies. And thanks so much for being on the phone today with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Danny.
All right, thanks, Sean. So we'll try one more time. We've gone past. We've tried Jayesh Doshi and John Finger. John and Jayesh, we can see you, but we can't hear you. Can you try one more time to join us?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay.
Fantastic. So everyone on the phone, this is John Finger with Baptist Memorial. And John, we thank you so much. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. John is the system director for corporate supply chain at Baptist Memorial Healthcare, and he was generous in being on the call today. He's very busy getting supplies to healthcare providers in the Memphis area and actually the Southeast region, as I understand it. So, John, can you tell us a little bit more about Baptist and your role there?
Sure. Baptist is what you call an integrated delivery network. It's comprised of 25 acute care hospitals, over 400 clinics, and a whole slender surgery centers, etc. We're spread across Arkansas, Tennessee, and Mississippi. And we treat on an annual basis a little bit over 4 million people. And my role is corporate director of supply chain. And I guess the best way to sum that up is I'm responsible for everything from the green beans in the cafeteria to the $10 million laser systems.
Wow. So do you normally procure PPE as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the way we're structured, we have, I have my own contracting department. We negotiate out the contracts. We centralized all the purchasing activity here to corporate in Memphis. There are no buyers in any of the hospitals. And along with that, we centralized accounts payable. So that way, if we have a discrepancy with an invoice and a vendor rep is telling me the invoice is right or wrong, I can say, well, you need to talk to the guy that negotiated the deal with you, or the people that paid the bills, or the people that got the orders.
Okay. Can you kind of give us an update on the last few weeks for you as far as you know, the disruption to your normal supply chain and the challenges that you're facing right now?
Well, let me sum it up saying I've totally forgotten what I used to do 60 days ago. I mean, this COVID mess has turned everything upside down, especially in healthcare. Because by the time that we became aware of it, the manufacturers and distributors had already put us on allocation. And the allocation is 70% of however many products that I bought from that supplier the previous 90 days before COVID. Well, when COVID hit, our patient volumes have tripled. So that's a train wreck. And that's the reason we had to get kind of constructive. We cut a deal with a broker to help us get product out of China directly. That's helped a lot, but I saw your question about customs. They've been a total nightmare.
And so the broker's helping you with that, the customs part of it?
Yeah, he's helping with it, but his hands are tied if China wants to just kind of, take their sweet time getting around to doing what they're supposed to do to let the product go. Our first order was for 1 million face masks. It took 30 days to get here. So we placed another order. It got quicker out of China, but now when it hits customs in the States, many times it gets diverted to military or other hotspots, as they call it in the country.
What is your, what's your approach with finding domestic suppliers right now? Have you had any success finding some new suppliers here?
No, because unfortunately, the main type mask that we use for COVID, it's called an N95. And those are manufactured by Kimberly-Clark, now called Halyard. There's a comparable mask manufactured by 3M. So you would think I'd be able to get the product here in the States. Well, no, because once again, I'm on allocation or reduced order quantity. Or if I hadn't bought the product from them in that previous period, my allocated number is 0. They have to take care of their other customers.
It still surprises me to hear you say that we're living in this wonderful country of ours and we can't get masks to people here.
Right.
And even in areas that aren't, in Tennessee, where it's not really as bad as it is other places. Thanks so much again, John. Can you give us kind of, you talked about what it's been like the last few weeks. Can you give us a picture of what the next few weeks looks like for you, and maybe even longer term, how you think this is going to play out for you?
Next few weeks, we'll get a little bit better because we did place a massive initial order about 60 days ago, again, when this first hit. Those goods are now beginning to hit. So right now I'm feeling pretty good about the inventory that I have, which should last me about 60 more days. But we're not waiting. We've gone ahead and placed an additional order to get that in the pipeline.
Okay.
And when I say an additional order, you're talking tens of millions of dollars of goods.
And then, so can you give us a bit of a picture, 6 months to 18 months out? Do you think the supply chain will stabilize enough to keep up with the spikes that we'll see? I think we see that, that's at least what the forecast is we'll have hot spots pop up that far out.
Right. I'm hoping it stabilizes before flu season hits come October.
Okay.
But it's going to take the manufacturers a while to fill up their pipelines with product.
So it's still up in the air right now. Do you think it's still what do you say, 50-50 that it stabilizes before flu season?
Yes.
Okay.
Now the other side that really kind of gets to me is the price gouging. That N95 mask I told you about.
Right.
The order we placed 60 days ago, I paid $4.50 a mask. The order I just placed this week, $7 a mask. You know what I paid for that mask before this mess hit?
Would love to know.
44 cents.
Did you say 44 cents?
Yep. So I'm paying $7 for something I paid 44 cents for 90 days ago.
My goodness. Well, I hope that stabilizes for you, and I hope those shipments come in as planned. And John, thank you so much for being on the call. It's really important. We're trying to get this kind of information to manufacturers across the state that are considering this. So this is real-time information that helps those manufacturers make decisions. And so we really appreciate you being on the phone, John.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
So next we're going to retry our connection with Mr. Jayesh Doshi. Jayesh, are you on the phone now? Jayesh, if you're on the phone, you can hit *6, and you should be able to speak clearly. We can't hear you right now. Okay, so we'll move on. So I'll give my update on what we're seeing as far as the market for these products. John couldn't have given us a better update on the private side. We are, as I said, coordinating through our NIST federal sponsor. And so we encourage all manufacturers that are either currently producing critical supplies or ramping up to fill out this survey. And what's happening is that we are using that information to make connections with just across the supply chain and using that to support you in any way we can, and then connect you with state and national opportunities for contracts. And Jayesh, if you do get on, just speak up, and we'll go back to you. Make sure we get your input. So we would like to just briefly touch again on the 4 areas to consider before you pivot to production of PPE and medical devices. Any one of these areas, normally you can take a lot of this for granted, but like John Finger says, even the simplest tasks right now, if it involves COVID supplies, can be very difficult. And so we do caution you and want you to consider each of these areas before you launch into an effort. If you've already launched in and you're having issues in any one of these areas, please reach out to us and we can try to connect you as this situation continues to evolve. And so next we're going to go into our most practical final segment of the webinar. We're getting quite a few requests for information and guidance about how to deal with your facility if you have a COVID positive employee, how to disinfect, what to do with the disinfectants, those types of questions. And so fortunately, we've got some fantastic resources here at the University of Tennessee Center for Industrial Services to answer those types of questions. A good team and so that team is led by Mr. Walter Idle. Walter, we're so thankful to have you on our team and happy to have you on the phone today. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Fantastic. Walter is the Health and Safety Program Manager here at CIS. He conducts the OSHA Training Institute Educational Center for the Southeast region. So lots of expertise. We're glad to have you. Walter, can you just give us a general update on what you're seeing and some basic information about what's happening on the ground for COVID?
Well, what we're seeing, we're having lots of requests from clients about PPE-oriented questions, about not so much about supply chain stuff. That's more the MEPs. um, lane than ours, but ours is how to use different types of PPE, substitution of PPE, how to disinfect and reuse PPE. And now as we're moving toward opening things back up a little bit, what we're seeing is a lot of interest in how do we prepare our workplaces to reintegrate workers into the workplace. So that's kind of what we're seeing right now.
Okay. Walter, if an employee tests positive, is that a recordable OSHA event?
And the usual government type response would be, it depends. If the employee is like a first responder or a healthcare worker and being exposed to the coronavirus actually occurs as part of their job, then yes, it is reportable. If it is a community acquired COVID infection, echo. If it's community acquired or family acquired, it's not a reportable. OSHA views that as it's a public health emergency, not so much as a workplace thing. But if they're a first responder, healthcare worker, it is reportable.
Okay. And then if you do have a positive case, is it what are your initial, kind of the opening guidance for cleaning and sanitizing?
Well, we would tell everyone that you would need to refer to the current CDC guidelines, because some of that changes. Some of that stuff actually changes every day. So you need to look at what CDC is putting forth right now. In general terms, you need to try to isolate the area. If you can effectively ventilate the area and isolate it for 24 hours, that before you even start to sanitize and clean it, that would be optimal. If you can, if it is determined the person is COVID positive or even considered to be a person under investigation, then you would probably need to look at sanitizing and disinfecting that area preemptively.
Wow. Okay. And are there special receptacles needed for PPE in that case?
If the person is COVID positive, or if the person is even a person under investigation, any PPE used in the cleanup of that area would be regarded as biohazardous waste. And OSHA would view that as regulated medical waste. So it'd have to be disposed of in biohazard containers and go through that particular waste stream. If it's just normal preventative cleaning, no. But if it's COVID positive, or it's even a person under investigation, then you need to treat it as biohazardous waste.
Okay.
In other words, it's considered to be infectious until proven otherwise. So you want to err on the side of commission rather than omission.
Okay. And then, cleaning supplies, I'm having difficulty finding normal cleaning supplies for my house. How do we get large amounts of cleaning supplies if it's hard to find? Well,
the EPA actually has a list of approved agents for cleaning this type of infectious product, and that list is 40 pages long as of yesterday. So there are lots of options. Simple soap and water works. Clorox, a third of a cup of Clorox in a gallon of water works very well, although there are some things that don't react particularly well to being sprayed with Clorox, including people. Another thing that, I'm located in East Tennessee, a lot of our distilleries have actually gone into the production of high-proof alcohol that's a sanitizing agent. So you can actually make improvised wipes out of your just paper shop towels, a baggie, and some of that high-proof alcohol.
Okay. Okay, good to know. And then how important is a system like ISO 5001?
I'm going to defer that to my colleague Brian Lane because he's a lot more tuned into the world of ISO than I am. I'm more the emergency preparedness and response guy. So I'll let Brian address the ISO question.
Okay. Brian, are you there?
Let me see first. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Hello? All right. Yeah, so ISO 45001 is the Occupational Health and Safety Management System. And as I was listening to this really interesting information today, I think the one section that I would really call everybody's attention to, not that you're going to put 45001 into place, is section 8.1.3, which is management of change. Because what we're hearing throughout this whole process ever since this COVID-19 hit is change. Everybody's changing. They're using cleaners that Walter was talking about that maybe they haven't used before, or PPE, like Walter mentioned. Mr. Merle mentioned earlier that he's changing products. Anytime you make a change, there are going to be reactions to that. And so ISO 45001 doesn't require you to be able to predict the future. It does say you need to have a process in place. So if you make these changes, you can protect your employees. So for instance, if you're going to start using cleaners that you've never used before, you need to train your people. What are they using? If they're going to be using different types of personal protective equipment that they haven't used before, again, that's another change. More training, need to make sure that they're able to wear it. Wearing an N95 dust mask is not as easy as it sounds, especially if you're in a hot, humid environment. It's kind of hard to breathe through those things. So all of that ties back to this issue of unintended consequences. Gee whiz, we hadn't thought about that. We just wanted to make this change and do these things because we have to do it. But a system approach would require you to think through those things before you actually do it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for those insights, Walter and Brian. We have Jayesh Doshi on the line. Our plan was to go right into the Q&A for you guys because we anticipate that you'll get, Brian and Walter, you'll get quite a few questions about diving into details, and we still want to do that. So if you can hang on the line just a little bit more, we'll get to the Q&A section. But before we do that, let's back up and try to get Jayesh on the phone one more time. Jayesh, can you hear us?
You hear me, sir? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Good to hear you and good to see you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can.
Hello.
So, yes, we can. So Jayesh Doshi is the founder of eSpin Technologies, and we're really
Can you
excited
hear me?
to have. Yes, we can hear you.
I cannot hear you.
Okay. Can you hear us now?
I cannot hear you.
If somebody can just send a chat to Jayesh, he can just talk for a few minutes, and I've already sent him the questions that we were going to ask. If somebody can just, Felicia, if you can just chat with him and let him know we're ready, we can hear him just fine.
Thank you. We are doing our best right now.
So I'm just going to continue to introduce Jayesh. So Jayesh is the founder of eSpin Technologies, which produces advanced nanofiber textiles and air filtration products. We've been working with him. George Aislinger has been in Chattanooga for quite some time. And I understand that Jayesh has been working 90-hour weeks for the last few weeks to increase his capacity at his facility there to try to get filters here in the U.S., produced here in the U.S. And so he has a lot of great information and great experience to talk about the challenges that he's facing and also the business that he's received by forging ahead and creating new products. So unfortunately, I guess we'll not get to hear
me.
Yes, we can hear you, Jayesh.
Okay, great. So I guess there was some problem. I can talk now and answer the questions.
Okay, great. So I've introduced you. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you've been up to since the pandemic hit?
So we have been in business for 21 years, manufacturing nanofibers and nanofiber technology-based air filters. Our technology came from DoD's chem bio warfare. And as a result of COVID, very quickly we reintegrated our filter manufacturing machinery to make a face mask. And on the day one, we made a 39 mask an hour. And now we are cranking out about 9,500 masks a shift. These are all N95 made with nanofiber, which is very unique compared to what's available in market. And we forged a partnership with Volkswagen, and we are about to get a machine in next 10 days, which is going to allow us to make somewhere around 60,000 masks a day. So that's a short story about how we have moved. In addition to that, we also developed in 2 weeks with Whirlpool and Dow Chemical in partnership a HEPA filter, which are going to be used to in a powered air purifier system. So these are very small HEPA filters which are going to be used into the powered system for healthcare providers.
And are these all new relationships, or have you had these relationships for a while now?
No, this is an all complete new relationship. And of course, we are next door neighbor to Volkswagen. They knew us. We did some business with them in past, but at the time of this relationship, we were not doing business with them. But when they found out that we were manufacturing face masks from a Chattanooga News Times story, all of a sudden they approached us, and one thing led to other thing. And, we started doing that. In addition to this relationship, we also have formed relationship with 2 other corporations. One is a telephone manufacturing giant, and the other one is a plumbing supply giant. And what we are doing is we are manufacturing filter insert, which I can show you. These are the nanofiber insert. And what they are going to do is that they are going to put this on a 3D printed face mask or a thermoform face mask, or even some people are using this in a hand sewn face mask in a pocket, so that this acts as an N95 filtering face material, and it's like a Gillette blade concept. So you use it and you throw it, and you can wash the other component so that it is reusable.
That's fantastic. Can you tell us just a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced as you've ramped up, how you've overcome those challenges?
So one of the big challenges is finding the workforce who wants to do the shift work, because we started doing first and second. First shift we were always doing, but we added our machine capacity and we started second shift. So we are putting a lot of long hours, our original team, while looking for people who can join us for second shift and also third shift, and in addition to that weekend shift. And the problem is that government is paying everybody to stay at home, and it's very hard to get people to come and do the third shift or second shift or have them work on weekend while government is paying them a lot of money. So that's biggest challenge is finding people, and that has considerably slowed down our production, because we ran a 2 shift for almost 3.5 weeks, and then everybody got worn out and we had to really shut down, so we went back to first shift because we just can't continue to work 17 hours every day.
Wow. And then can you talk a little bit about what the next month looks like for you, 2 months, and then what are your plans more long term?
So right now we have recruited 2 recruiting companies to find us second and third shift swing shift workers, and increase the workforce to 25 people, add 25 more people so that we can run all our machines. Our growth rate looks very good. Nanofibers are getting mainstream. So it appears that we will be continuously in demand for our filter as well as face mask material. We are getting a lot of requests from military bases and some of the hospital about providing HEPA filters with this new technology. So going forward, we expect to remain busy for foreseeable future and add more people.
Fantastic. Jayesh, could you just kind of closing thoughts, if there's a lot of manufacturers on the line, but if you were getting started, if you could go back and get started, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, what would your advice be?
Well, my advice would be to look at the current situation and see how you can help this crisis. But once this crisis are over, it is very important that you have a mainstream product so that when the crisis are over, you can leverage the current relationship and use your technology to provide other products to them. One of the big thing is happening is that as a result of us providing face masks to some of the new relationship, they all are interested in buying our air filter now, and that's a great news for us because we'll be able to support them. So I think it is important to look at your manufacturing infrastructure and see how you can leverage the relationship and provide them in addition to your PPE products, which you may be thinking about providing.
Great advice. So thanks so much, Jayesh, for being on the phone today. We really appreciate it. And sorry for those who had to. Well, thank you for your patience as we got connected with Jayesh today. So now, and thanks again, Jayesh. Now we're going to move to our Q&A section. We're actually right on time. And so we're going to move to our Q&A section, which we're trying to devote that mainly to health and safety for your employees and your workplace, keeping your workplace going. So I will let Felicia and Misty kind of take over from here to manage the questions that have come through on chat, and then we'll talk through a few of those and let Walter and Brian answer those, and then we'll open up the floor for all the participants that are on the line to ask questions live for our experts here at CIS. So I'll mute myself and let Misty and Felicia take over here.
Hey, Danny, we had one question, but we've already taken care of that offline. So if you want to go ahead and open it up, it looks like Misty just sent out an email or a chat to everybody. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to send them to us.
Okay, and we've got 40, so we're going to go ahead and go live now. If you've got a question for Brian or Walter, please share. Okay, don't be shy. Walter and Brian, could you just go into a little bit more detail about maybe what the CDC is looking for, and then just a little bit more detail as far as where we would find the the most recent information about what we need to do?
Well, to answer Christy's question, you can use just a standard industrial wipe like a wipe all or any of the paper type wipes that you normally use in your facility, or you can even use gauze, you can use different any type of absorbent cloth. And so those should be pretty easy to source. I mean, truth be told, you could even use napkins or paper towels. The carrying agent is not going to be what does the disinfection. The high-grade alcohol is going to be what is the disinfecting agent. So anything that's reasonably absorbent, just put in baggie, put some of the alcohol in there, seal it up. You don't want to leave it just sitting overnight, but that makes a good improvised wipe, because the high-proof alcohols, anything, it has to be over 80% alcohol. And our distilling industry seems to be very happy to produce that product right now.
And Danny, this is Brian. If the people just go to OSHA's website, www.osha.gov, the first thing they'll see when they go to that page is a link to their resource page on COVID-19. So OSHA's put out guidelines for manufacturers. They've put out record keeping instruction that Walter addressed earlier, and then they have the links to the CDC as well.
Great, Brian. Where is it? What's the URL for that? Just OSHA.gov or?
Yes, sir. www.osha.gov.
Okay.
And Misty's put that in the chat as well for anybody who wants to access it. We also had a question from Dwayne asking if Baptist has an option to use alternate products like Dr. Doshi's.
Yeah, so I think Dwayne, you can chime in here, but I think what he's asking is, there's, we've got the three, John Finger was talking about how he is relying on the conventional suppliers like 3M, and we may have, if Jayesh is still on the line, he may be able to answer this. But Walter and Brian, do you guys have any sense for how and when a manufacturer or a hospital can switch over to using a supplier that's new and maybe hasn't been producing as long, doesn't have a long history of producing?
Well, a lot of the hospitals are getting PPE through the federal government, because in a lot of cases the federal government, since rationing is probably a strong word, allocation is probably the proper word, but the federal government's kind of using its power of the bully pulpit to sort of snap up PPE. So a lot of the hospitals are actually getting allocations through the Strategic National Stockpile. And if you can get in on that network to where your products are going into the SNS, you should probably be in pretty good shape. A lot of hospital and healthcare systems are certainly looking at alternatives. I would just caution people to not get too far from the mainstream. Now, our colleague in Chattanooga, his product sounds really fascinating, and I think he's going to come out of this in very good shape. I think there's going to be a very long-term extraordinary demand for the sort of filtration products he's going to be able to offer. So I would say get in with him quickly. And answer to a question, is the high-proof alcohol not intended for direct use on the hands? A lot of the distilleries are actually marketing this as hand sanitizer. Now, do you want to use this on your hands 83 times a day? It will probably dry it out. If you're using it for disinfection, you would probably need to use good chemical hygiene and wear gloves if you're exposing your skin to it on a fairly continuous basis. But a lot of the distilleries are actually making this as hand sanitizer and marketing it as such.
And Walter, so I have a question, Walter and Brian. Is the governor still issuing his guidance for manufacturers as far as what's happening in Tennessee, or should manufacturers be looking to the federal government or the local municipality, to make, I'm thinking of more along the lines of deciding whether an employee needs to wear a mask versus gloves versus both versus neither. Can you give us a little bit of an update on that? I know that's a dynamic situation, but
I would encourage people to defer to the OSHA website or the CDC website, because most of the states are going to be deferring to them anyway.
okay.
Those are probably going to be your two most vetted resources. There are certainly plenty of websites that are offering guidance as to certain aspects of this. But the fact is, the organizations of record of this are going to be CDC and OSHA. So that's where I would go straight to the source.
Okay. Fantastic. Felicia and Missy, do we have any more questions on chat?
We
from
do.
Walter?
We had one question from Sway Hammocks that says, am I understanding correctly that FEMA or U.S. military is legally able to seize incoming shipments of PPE to redistribute to hotspots?
That has certainly occurred with domestic production. I cannot directly address importation of product, but with domestic production, they have those resources have been rediverted to the Fed.
Okay, great. Thanks, Walter. We have one more question from Patrick Monk.
And yes, they do pay for them.
Okay, thanks, Walter. We have a question from Patrick Monk that says, is there a website or community resource where companies can find partners to combine capabilities and knowledge to produce needed products?
Yeah, so that's one for me. So we recommend that all manufacturers, every manufacturer in Tennessee that's interested or already producing, to please go to surveymonkey.com/r/CV19 critical supply. And there you'll be asked a series of questions, your contact information, what product you're supplying, and what your needs are, what your capacities are, that type of information. And please fill that out. And that is our best way to plug you into other suppliers that need what you have, and also to plug you into supplies that you may need, and then also direct you to opportunities that as they arise.
And we'll be sure to include this in the follow-up email this afternoon.
Any other questions? Well, fantastic. Again, thanks to our guests today, and thanks for all of you who are attending, and thank you to all our manufacturers that are doing great work out there, and in the face of a lot of uncertainty. And so we're here to help. If you have any questions at all, feel free to call us. You can contact me. I'm Danny Norman at danny.norman@tennessee.edu, and we'll be happy to help support you in any way we can. Thanks so much for being on the call today. Yes.
Hey, Danny, we've got one last question.
Okay.
What was the name of the supplier network that the manufacturers should look to be a part of, the one that hospitals are looking to buy from in the U.S.?
I'm not quite certain. We'll have to answer that. I don't know specifically what.
You're referring to the Strategic National Stockpile? If you're referring to the Strategic National Stockpile, that's managed by the Department of Health and Human Services for the feds.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what they were referring to, the SNS.
Thank you.
Thanks, Walter. Okay, thank you, Felicia. Thanks to everyone.